Hello. So, we've been given the song XXX written by Kendrick Lamar. Hello. So, we've been given the song XXX written by Kendrick Lamar and featuring U2 to analyze. Yes, and then something about Kendrick Lamar's childhood. He grew up in Compton, which is located a bit south of Los Angeles, downtown in California. It's a society that's heavily challenged. There's extremely high crime rates, but he really wasn't like into the gang stuff all that much, but he was influenced by it a lot, which is reflected in his lyrics. Yes.
So, in short, from the beginning, Kenning and I would like to go over the racial disparities in the USA, mainly on the drug department. And to start off, when the war on drugs began in the USA, black people were used as front figures. Black people were shown high on drugs to portray a certain persona, and which the white people would fear and therefore not take drugs. So right from the beginning, the black people were portrayed as the people who took the drugs and were doing the drugs, and they were really bad because of this. And from there on out, law enforcement really focused on urban areas, communities of lower income and communities of color. So they would patrol these parts more often than, for example, rich white parts of the USA. And in another word, in some, for example, airports, if people were searched for drugs, the main part of those searched would be either Latin or black people, and mainly black people in there. So from the beginning, the black people, the system were sort of rigged against the black people.
Yeah. And you can see this inequality in statistics, especially in equal punishments, where 5 grams of crack cocaine, which is generally used in colored areas, equals the same amount of punishment for 500 grams of powder cocaine, which is used in white communities. You can also see the incarceration rates of African Americans, where only 35 of the arrested people for drug possession are African Americans, but a whole 55 of convicted are African Americans, and it goes all the way up to 47% imprisoned for drug possession is African Americans. So our thesis statement is that the song is about a complete permeation of the American system. It's how an upcomer like Kendrick Lamar falls in the same white privilege pit, upper class, and not being able to make a difference, be different, and deviate from the white path, and further reinforcing the cycle of white privilege.
Also, the song revolves around the opposition, for example, the upper class, and Kendrick Lamar himself is in fact an ideal here, and he is portraying himself as in a hypocritical sense, because he takes part in both the white upper class but still in the black lower class. So he has these two personalities he has to fight, to say it in a way. Yeah.
Yeah, and we also claim that Kendrick Lamar talks about racially divided people, as you said.
Yeah.
Yeah, and economically divided upper class and lower working class.
In the text, we see multiple personas being described, and one of which is the black persona. Both personas are being described in the first verse. So the black persona is being described as, in the first line it says, throw a stake off the ark. And so the black people are being referred to as stakes, as lumps of meat, and thus being dehumanized, and they were thrown off the ark of Noah's ark and exiled from society. And it says they were thrown off the ark into a pool full of sharks. And then later it says that they've been left in the wilderness, and it also says that Johnny said books ain't cool no more. And this has a double meaning. So the book is both the Bible and it also refers to school books. So Johnny is no longer interested in the Bible, the Christian values of being nice and such, and he doesn't want to go to school either. And Johnny is just a normal name, so it's an average African-American boy. And it says Johnny want to be a rapper like his big cousin, so he looks up to the rappers who rap about drugs and sex and crime, and also tend to have a history of crime, which is of course not ideal. And then it says Johnny caught a body yesterday out hustling. So Johnny killed someone while he was working for his gang, and now he's become fully immersed in this this world, and he's been involved in crime. And the other persona is the white persona, and they're described as being above the law. So it says in the text, I'll chip a nigga, then throw the blower in a slap, walk myself to court like, bitch, I did that. And then X-rated. So the white man, the wealthy white man, recklessly kills the black community, and then also blames it on the black community. And so when he walks into court, he knows that he did something wrong and that he committed a crime, but he also knows that he's not going to take the blame, but that the black community is going to take the blame. And the reason that this is X-rated is because it's censored. It's the truth that is censored. And the white persona is characterized by being reckless and raised above the law.
So Kendrick Lamar has this duality of personality, where he claims, or feels at least, that he possesses both of the races' values. So the two races kind of clash with each other. As Philip said earlier, he's aware of the power he has, the white power. He can go to court and be like, bitch, I did that. However, he's unsure of what he wants to present, what part of the community, the American population, does he want to be. And therefore, he's unstable, he's wrecked with explosives. Furthermore, you can see that you can interpret this two different ways. Either that Kendrick feels part of the black community. If you threaten the black community, you directly threaten him. Or that even though he has this white power, he isn't able to keep the peace. A baby is still going to get shot. Yes.
Okay, so you can roughly divide the entire song into like 7 different parts. So the intro is the American dream and kinda showing off the underlying problem that is in America, because the American dream has since a long time ago become more and more untrue and harder to achieve. And then verse 1, you see you see things from the elite perspective, how you throw things down to the working class, and not really doing anything different. it's just an endless cycle that will repeat itself. And then in verse 2, Kendrick talks to one of his fellow black friends, I assume, and he kind of reflects upon a death of which the black friend had just had in his family, like a short time past, and yeah, Kendrick kind of gives his take on what he would have done, and it's not really that role model like. He would act very violently, yes. And then there's the break that kind of shows off this hypocrisy of action that Kendrick himself shows off. Yeah, where he says, and he says, "Pray for me," and but just before that, he talks about gun control in a classroom, I think, which kind of shows off how his actions doesn't fall in line with what he does in public. Yeah, and then there's the staging of the religious nature of everything, and that's directed to the white people because they kind of hide themselves behind this facade of religion and thinking that everything they do is in good spirit, but in real life they're just as bad as the black people, and it's all just chaos. And then the chorus, the last chorus, is about not being able to source the problem. And when you finally do source the problem, you find something that you'll not be happy to find. In this case, it is fear. Yes. And yeah, in the song itself, there's a lot of rhymes and rhythm. There's I rhymes, N rhymes, slant rhymes. So there's I rhymes. For example, God and good sound different, but when you read it, they look very much alike. And then there's in rhymes, such as hand and understand, and slant rhymes, which kind of sound alike, but doesn't quite have the same rhyme as a traditional rhyme would have. And then there's this irregular composition throughout the entirety of the song, where the rhymes are kind of a bit off. They're not really in the typical A-B fashion or A-B-B-A. It's a bit hard to track the rhymes at times, which kind of, again, goes in line with the whole idea of everything being chaos in this song. Yeah, and here's just other examples of these rhymes, and more so the irregular composition. Yeah. And then there's also language figures. There's the use of assonance, son, somebody, a lot of O sounds that I've written, used to help cement the mood as well as contribute to some rhythm in the song. Then there's also consonants in the S sound, somebody, son, somebody getting killed, again for a bit of the same reasoning to contribute to the rhythm of the song. And then there's also repetition, like I'll chip a nickel, little bit of nothing, repeated 3 times. And that's used to bring attention to the same, and in this case, probably also to insinuate the literal repetition of the action by giving off little bits of nothing repeatedly. Doing that a repeated amount of times. Yeah. Yeah, and then there's also some rap features. Here, Kendrick Lamar expresses his own opinion inserts his opinions in a way, in a what-if way of thinking. So, yeah, he kind of expresses how if somebody would touch his family, he would react very radically. This. And then there's other forms of rap features. There's contractions, I'll leaving, and elisions, talking, philosophing, and omissions, and I'm about. Yes. And there's also metaphor and imagery. Yeah. So the Hail Mary, Jesus and Joseph, the great American flag is wrapped and dragged with explosive, and so on. I interpreted it as this entirety, or this is just a part of the third verse, but the whole verse is about like the religious undertones, as I mentioned previously in the American society, and how there's a moral regression, and each person, and mostly these persons, mostly being white, hide behind this religion, and the thing that they hide in is filled with explosions and turmoil.
Okay, bare lige så vi er sikre. Vi kan godt klippe det lige nu, og vi er gået ind endnu. Jeg starter.
Ja.
Og så kommer du, og så slutter jeg af.
Jeg starter.
Og så tager jeg de to sidste, eller hvad?
Ja, jeg tager det her.
Nu skal du lige gå ud igen så bagefter. Så du tager den første?
Ja.
Og så tager jeg Tom and Daisy Buchanan is the white man raised above the law, does something
Yes.
terrible, blows someone up and goes to court, bitch, I did that. And they do not they're not incarcerated for it, they're not convicted for it, they just go on and someone
Yeah.
else takes the fall for it. And, og så den sidste, the black people do live against the system. Og så kan jeg også godt snakke om det, du siger med, at hvad det hedder. Vi klipper bare i det, hvis at, ja. Vi klipper bare i det. Hvad er der?
Okay. Du er i gang lige nu, du er egentlig der,
Vi-
på. Og en eller anden...
Ja, han er egentlig færdig med sin del. Okay, og så snakker jeg også lidt det der, han måske sagde med, at Kendrick Lamar and this one is the one of the Gatsby voting against the current only to be brought back. Only to have the system bring him back because he cannot really excel. Alright.
So to finish off our presentation, we would like to set this song up against The Great Gatsby to see similarities in ways. So Kenny would start off.
Yeah, so it's fairly easy to draw parallels between Kendrick Lamar's song and The Great Gatsby. Like The Great Gatsby, Kendrick Lamar is new money. He's the person who moved, worked his way up through the social classes, up to the upper class, the white people, and even though he managed to reach this class, he's still not really able to fit in, and he still sticks out. Yes.
Yeah, him being the new money, and we also have Tom and Daisy Buchanan would symbolize the white man who was raised above the law, and Kendrick Lamar's song, as Philip also covered, they can kill someone and they can go to court and almost saying that they did it without even being convicted. The system is made for the white man to excel, and so therefore, and in the end causing up someone else taking the damage. For example, The Great Gatsby dying because of Tom having an affair with his mistress and Daisy actually killing his mistress. So therefore we have this play between these two, and to bring it all together we have the black people who can do little against the system. The ones on top stays on top, the old money stays on top because the system is made for them. The system is made for the white people, so therefore they have it easier. So we have the Buchanans versus the Gatsby, and we have Kendrick Lamar versus the whites and fitting in there. And you could also say, like in the end of The Great Gatsby, Kendrick Lamar is voting against the current only to be brought back of the system or of the way he is living, because he cannot really stick to this part up here, because if someone is getting killed, his black persona will once again rise. And even further, the war on drugs also comes into play here, because the system here also favors the white. As Canning and I mentioned earlier, more black people get convicted for doing less, and Kendrick is one of these. He has it harder to really fit in here because of these, because of the system being rigged against him, actually, to sum it all up, which is what he covers in this song. Yeah. Get a meaning? This is the...
Okay, men det var også bare lige for, at han lige kunne rette i det, inden jeg begyndte at snakke.
Ja.
Men gav det mening, det har stået fablet om der?